Nobody wanted to mate with the poor alien orphan, except the human, who later found out. The station of Viral Prime was a place where choices decided survival. Every cycle, hundreds of species gathered there to form life bonds. These bonds were not about romance. They were about protection, shared status, and belonging. In this galaxy, being alone meant being weak, and being weak meant being forgotten. Kalith knew this better than anyone. Kalith stood at the far edge of the bonding hall, thin fingers folded together, long cloak hanging loose over a fragile frame. The alien skin was pale silver, marked with faint lines that never fully formed a pattern. Those lines were supposed to glow brightly in bonded adults. On Kalith, they stayed dull, almost invisible. Whispers followed wherever Kalith went. Orphan. Better to forget than to awaken something old. So Kalith waited, as always. Pairs and groups moved past, forming bonds in bright displays of energy and ceremony. Some bonds were practical, some were political. All of them brought safety. Every time someone glanced at Kalith, they quickly looked away. No one wanted to mate with the poor alien orphan. Across the hall, a human watched quietly. Ethan Hale stood out without trying. Humans always did. Shorter than most species, no glowing markings, no armored skin, no natural weapons. Just 2 arms, 2 legs, and eyes that moved too much, noticing things others ignored. This was Ethan's first off-world assignment. He was not here to bond. He was here to observe and learn. Humans were still new to the Galactic Coalition, and most species treated them like curious animals, harmless, emotional, and temporary. Ethan had been taught the rules. Don't interfere. Don't offend traditions. Don't touch bonding rituals. But Ethan kept looking at the lone figure by the wall. Kalith did not beg, did not cry, did not speak. That somehow made it worse. When the final bonding bell rang, the hall grew quiet. The unchosen would be escorted out soon. For most, that meant trying again next cycle. For someone like Kalith, it meant returning to the lower districts, where protection was thin and survival uncertain. Ethan felt something tighten in his chest. He turned to the guide assigned to him, a tall, insect-like being with golden eyes. "What happens to the one standing alone?" Ethan asked. The guide followed his gaze and stiffened slightly. "That individual will be relocated. It is unfortunate." "That's it," Ethan pressed. "No support." The guide hesitated. "That bloodline is best left unbonded." "History shows instability." Ethan frowned. "Instability how?" The guide's mandibles clicked softly. "Records are sealed." That answer bothered Ethan more than a warning would have. As the escorts began moving toward Kalith, Ethan stepped forward. The guide's eyes widened. "Human, you must not." Ethan raised a hand. "I'm not breaking anything, I just want to talk." Kalith looked up as Ethan approached. The alien's eyes were large, dark, and cautious. There was no hope in them, only acceptance. Ethan stopped a few steps away. "Hi," he said, feeling foolish. "I'm Ethan." Kalith studied him carefully. "You should not be here," Kalith said softly. The voice was calm but tired. "Association with me carries risk." Ethan blinked. "You sound like you've practiced that line." Kalith tilted their head slightly. "Many times." The escorts paused, uncertain. No rule said a human observer could not speak. Ethan swallowed. "I don't really understand your bonding system," he admitted. "But where I come from, leaving someone alone like this, it's not right." Kalith's fingers tightened. "Pity is unnecessary." "It's not pity," Ethan said quickly. "It's choice." That word made Kalith still. "Choice," Kalith repeated. Ethan nodded. "I choose to stand with you, at least for now." The hall went silent. The guide turned sharply. "Human, you cannot offer a bond lightly. You do not understand." "I'm not offering anything permanent," Ethan said. "Humans make temporary contracts all the time. Support agreements, shared protection. That's allowed, right?" The guide hesitated. "Technically, yes." "A provisional bond is permitted." Kalith stared at Ethan. "Why?" Ethan met that gaze. "Because no one else did. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then Caliph slowly raised a hand. A small, ancient symbol appeared in the air between them, faint and unstable. It was the simplest form of bonding mark, one usually used only by children or the desperate. "This is not a full mating bond," Caliph said. "It will link status and basic protection, nothing more." "That's fine," Ethan said, relief washing over him. "I don't need more." When Ethan touched the symbol, it dissolved into light. The reaction was immediate. A pulse of energy spread across the floor. Lights flickered. The hall's ancient systems hummed in confusion. Caliph gasped softly as the faint lines on their skin brightened, just for a moment before settling into a steady glow. The crowd stepped back in fear. "That should not happen," someone whispered. Ethan felt a strange warmth in his chest, like standing near a fire. It wasn't painful, it was grounding. Caliph looked down at their hands, shaking. "The bond is stable." The guide's voice was tight. "Human, do you have any idea what you've done?" Ethan shook his head honestly. "No, but if it helps them survive, I can live with that." Caliph looked at Ethan again, this time with something new in their eyes. Not hope, recognition. The escorts withdrew. No one tried to break the bond. Ancient rules were ancient rules. As Ethan and Caliph walked out of the hall together, whispers followed them. "Why did it activate?" Ethan glanced over. "Yeah. This bond will change things," Caliph said quietly. "For me, possibly for you." Ethan smiled faintly. "Change isn't always bad." Caliph said nothing, but the glow beneath the skin pulsed once soft, steady, alive. Far above the station, ancient monitoring systems awakened for the first time in centuries. They detected a signal long believed extinct. A forbidden bond had formed, and it involved a human. The corridors of Viral Prime felt different after the bond. Ethan noticed it first in small ways. Doors opened faster. Security scanners paused, then quietly approved his presence. It was as if the station itself was unsure how to treat him now. Caliph noticed something else. For the first time in many cycles, the constant ache in Caliph's chest was gone. The feeling of being hollow, unfinished, had faded into a steady warmth that followed every breath. The faint glowing lines under the skin stayed calm and even, no longer flickering with stress. That alone was alarming. They walked together in silence toward the lower habitation ring, where temporary quarters were assigned to unbonded or provisionally bonded beings. Other aliens moved out of their way, pretending not to stare. Some showed fear, some showed anger. None showed kindness. Ethan finally broke the silence. "Is it always like this?" Caliph understood what he meant. "Worse," Caliph answered. "Today was public." Ethan exhaled slowly. "I didn't mean to cause trouble." "You did," Caliph said honestly, then paused. "But not in the way they fear." That answer did not comfort Ethan as much as he hoped it would. Their quarters were small but clean. One main room, 2 resting alcoves, and a shared utility space. Nothing special. Still, the door sealed behind them with a heavy final sound, cutting off the whispers outside. Ethan leaned against the wall and rubbed his face. "Okay, I think we should talk." Caliph nodded. "That would be wise." Ethan met Caliph's eyes. "Everyone keeps acting like I did something dangerous. I bonded with you because you needed help. That's it. So tell me the part I'm missing." Caliph hesitated. Then Caliph moved closer to the center of the room and slowly removed the cloak. The silver skin beneath was marked with glowing lines now brighter than before, forming shapes that looked incomplete, like a story stopped halfway. "This bloodline once served as guardians," Caliph said quietly. "Not rulers, not conquerors, protectors." Ethan listened closely. "Our kind bonded deeply," Caliph continued. "Too deeply. Most species formed bonds based on hierarchy or control. We bonded through loyalty. When our partners felt fear, we felt it. When they were threatened, our bodies responded." Ethan frowned. "That sounds like a good thing." "It was," Caliph said, "until others learned how to use it." Caliph explained how, long ago, powerful factions forced bonds onto Caliph's people, pushing them into endless conflict. The protectors became weapons. The weapons became monsters. And when the wars ended, fear replaced gratitude. So they erased us, Caliph said. Records destroyed, children separated, orphans like me left unbonded so the bloodline would die quietly. Ethan felt sick, and bonding with me woke it up. Yes, Caliph said. But differently, Ethan looked confused. Differently how? Caliph hesitated again, then spoke carefully. You did not command, you did not demand, you offered choice. Ethan shrugged. That's normal for humans. That, Caliph said softly, is not normal for the galaxy. Before Ethan could respond, a sharp tone echoed through the room. The wall panel lit up with an official symbol, an incoming summons. Caliph's posture stiffened. The council, Ethan straightened. Already? They do not wait when ancient systems reactivate, Caliph said. The council chamber was colder than the bonding hall. Dark stone, high ceilings, rows of representatives watching from elevated platforms. Ethan felt small walking in, but he kept his shoulders square. Caliph walked beside him, calm on the surface, alert beneath. A tall counselor spoke first. Human Ethan Hale, you have formed a provisional bond with a sealed bloodline. Ethan nodded. Yes. Why? The counselor demanded. Ethan didn't hesitate. Because leaving someone to suffer because of fear is wrong. Murmurs spread across the chamber. Another counselor leaned forward. Your ignorance does not excuse the consequences. Ethan met their gaze. Maybe, but neither does cruelty. That earned silence. The lead counselor turned to Caliph. State your condition. Caliph answered clearly. The bond is stable. My abilities are active but controlled. No aggressive impulses detected. That statement caused visible unrest. That is impossible, someone hissed. It has never happened before, another said. Ethan stepped forward. Then maybe you should ask why it happened now. The counselors looked at him. Humans don't bond to control, Ethan said. We bond to cooperate. We don't give orders, we give trust. Maybe that's what your system was missing. For a moment, the chamber was quiet. Then alarms blared, the lights dimmed, a deep vibration ran through the floor. Report, a counselor shouted. A voice echoed from the chamber's systems. Unidentified vessels emerging near the station, hostile configuration. Caliph's eyes widened. They found us. Who? Ethan asked. Those who remember what my people can do, Caliph said. The council erupted into chaos. Security forces rushed in. Orders were shouted and contradicted. Ethan looked at Caliph. Can you help? Caliph closed their eyes briefly. The glowing lines bright and steady and strong. Yes, but only if you remain near. Ethan didn't hesitate. He stepped closer. Then I'm not going anywhere. The first explosion rocked the station. Metal screamed. Gravity fluctuated. Screams echoed through distant corridors. Caliph raised a hand, not in anger but focus. A transparent field spread outward, stabilizing the chamber. Falling debris slowed, then stopped. The council stared in shock. That level of control, one whispered. Caliph breathed steadily. I am not defending the station, Caliph said. I am defending my bond partner. Ethan swallowed hard. Security feeds appeared across the walls. Hostile boarding crafts latched onto the station. Armed figures poured in. Ethan felt fear rise in his chest. Caliph felt it too. But instead of losing control, Caliph anchored to it. The bond translated fear into clarity, into purpose. This is what they feared, Caliph said quietly. Not destruction, loyalty. The counselor looked at Ethan with something like realization. Human, you didn't awaken a weapon. Ethan kept his eyes on the feeds. No, I stood next to a person. The chamber shook again, harder this time. Caliph turned to Ethan. If they reach us, they will try to sever the bond. Ethan nodded. Can they? Not while you choose me, Caliph replied. Ethan placed a hand over the glowing symbol on his chest, feeling its warmth. Then that's an easy choice. Above the station, ancient defense systems shifted, aligning with Caliph's presence. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy's forgotten guardians were not angry. They were focused, and they were protecting a human. The first boarding team reached the outer corridors within minutes. Ethan could feel the station tremble beneath his feet as distant impacts echoed through the metal walls. Emergency lights washed the halls in red, and warning messages repeated in several languages. Fear spread fast among the inhabitants of Viral Prime. Calith stood very still. The glowing lines across Calith's skin brightened, forming clearer patterns now. They no longer looked broken or unfinished. They looked awake. Ethan noticed his own breathing slow as he stood closer to Calith. The fear was still there, heavy in his chest, but it no longer controlled him. Somehow the bond turned panic into something sharp and focused. "They're moving toward the council sector," Ethan said, watching the security feed. Calith nodded. "They know where I am." "Why attack now?" Ethan asked. "Because the bond stabilized me," Calith replied. "That was never meant to happen." Security forces rushed past the chamber doors, weapons raised, faces tense. Many of them glanced at Calith, unsure whether to be afraid or relieved. A counselor approached cautiously. "We need your help," the counselor said, voice tight. "Our defenses are failing." Calith turned slowly. "I will help," Calith said, "but I will not obey orders that place my bond partner at risk." The counselor hesitated, then nodded. "Agreed." Ethan felt a strange mix of pride and fear. "Looks like you're in charge," he said quietly. Calith looked at him. "Only because you are here." The first wave of attackers broke through a nearby corridor. Armored figures poured in, moving fast and disciplined. Their weapons were designed to disable shields and suppress energy-based defenses. They had come prepared. Ethan's heart pounded. "They don't look friendly." Calith raised one hand. The air between the attackers and the chamber warped, as if reality itself had thickened. The first attackers slammed into the invisible barrier and fell back, stunned but alive. Calith did not strike them. Calith simply stopped them. "They expected rage," Calith said softly. "They planned for it." Ethan swallowed. "But you're not angry." "No," Calith replied. "I am protecting." More attackers pushed forward, adapting quickly. Energy pulses hammered the barrier, causing ripples but no break. Ethan felt fear spike again as the barrier strained. Calith staggered. Ethan reacted without thinking. He grabbed Calith's arm. "Hey, I'm here." The glow steadied. Calith's breathing evened out. "Your presence reinforces the bond," Calith said. "Your emotions anchor mine." Ethan blinked. "So, teamwork." "Yes," Calith said. "Human style." Together they moved forward. The barrier shifted shape, guiding attackers into controlled paths, separating weapons from hands, pinning them without injury. Security forces stared in disbelief as enemies were neutralized without bloodshed. "This is impossible," one officer whispered. "It's cooperation," Ethan muttered. More alarms sounded. A new threat appeared on the feeds. A larger force had breached the station's core systems. They were attempting to overload the power grid. "If they succeed," a technician shouted, "the station will tear itself apart." Calith closed their eyes. The glowing patterns flared brighter than ever before. "I can reach the core," Calith said, "but it will expose me." Ethan stepped closer. "Then I'll go with you." Calith opened their eyes sharply. "It will be dangerous." Ethan nodded. "I know." The counselor hesitated only a second. "Escort them." They moved through damaged corridors filled with smoke and debris. Fires burned, but Calith's presence calmed unstable systems. Power fluctuations smoothed out as they passed. Attackers tried to intercept them. Each time Calith reacted instantly, not with violence but precision. Floors hardened, walls shifted, gravity tilted just enough to disarm and contain. The station itself seemed to respond. "They're not fighting the station," Ethan realized aloud. "They're fighting you." Calith answered quietly. "Once my people were bonded to places like this. We helped them endure." They reached the core chamber. Inside, enemy engineers worked fast, ignoring the alarms. At their center stood a figure wearing command markings. The commander turned slowly. "So the orphan walks again," the commander said coldly. Caliph stiffened. "You know my bloodline." "I helped erase it," the commander replied. "You were never meant to stabilize." Ethan stepped forward. "Funny thing about people, we don't always stay broken." The commander sneered. "Human, step aside. This does not concern you." Caliph's glow intensified sharply at that. "It concerns him most of all," Caliph said. "He chose me." The commander raised a device aimed directly at Caliph. "Then I will sever the bond." Fear hit Ethan like a wave. Caliph faltered. Ethan grabbed Caliph's hand, grounding both of them. "No," Ethan said firmly. "You don't get to decide that." The bond surged, not violently but clearly. The device sparked and shut down, overwhelmed by feedback it could not process. The commander stared in disbelief. "This bond is wrong," the commander whispered. "Yes," Caliph replied. "It is different." Caliph raised both hands. The core stabilized instantly. Overload sequences canceled. Systems repaired themselves faster than engineers could understand. Across the station, alarms fell silent. Security forces moved in, detaining the attackers. The commander collapsed to their knees. "You were supposed to be monsters." Caliph looked down at them. "We were made into monsters," Caliph said. "That is not the same thing." When it was over, Ethan realized his legs were shaking. Caliph steadied him. "You are afraid," Caliph said gently. "Yeah," Ethan admitted. "But I didn't run." Caliph's expression softened. "That matters." Later, back in the council chamber, silence filled the room. The counselors looked at Caliph with something new now: respect. "You saved this station," the lead counselor said. Caliph shook their head. "I protected my bond partner. The station benefited." The counselor turned to Ethan. "Human, what have you done?" Ethan thought about it. "I treated someone like a person." The counselor exhaled slowly. "Then the galaxy has a problem." Ethan frowned. "What kind of problem?" "One that changes everything," the counselor replied. "Because if humans can stabilize what we feared," the counselor looked at Caliph again. "Then we were never afraid of your kind." The room grew very quiet. Far beyond Viral Prime, signals spread through ancient networks carrying a simple message: the bond has awakened, and it is not hostile. Ethan felt the warmth in his chest pulse once, steady and strong. Caliph stood beside him, no longer alone, and the galaxy was beginning to understand just how dangerous compassion could be. Days passed since the attack on Viral Prime, but the air was still thick with tension. The station had calmed, its shattered defenses repaired. But the damage was deeper than just metal and circuitry. The galaxy was changing, and so was Ethan. He had spent much of his life as an observer, a quiet figure who followed orders, learned from the edges of the world. Now, standing beside Caliph, he felt like something more. Not a soldier, not a leader, but a witness to something bigger than both of them. Caliph had always been the center of this change, but now Ethan could feel it too: the weight of the bond, the power it carried. The way it had settled in their chests, warm and steady, as if something deep inside them had been awakened. The council, though still reluctant to fully embrace the idea, had agreed to discuss the bond. They would review human behavior, assess the untested potential of humanity's ability to stabilize ancient bonds like Caliph's. But they no longer treated Ethan as just a curious observer. Ethan had become something else. The council called him for a private meeting one morning, a cold chamber of stone where all decisions were made. It was the first time they'd asked for him specifically. "Human Ethan Hale," the lead counselor began, "you and your bond partner have changed the understanding of this galaxy. What we feared in your kind was not what we expected." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "What did you expect?" The counselor shifted in their seat. "We expected humans to be reckless, to fight for dominance, but instead you have shown restraint, empathy, and that complicates everything." Ethan stayed quiet. The weight of the counselor's words settled over him. They weren't congratulating him. They weren't offering admiration. They were acknowledging the unknown. "Do you understand the consequences?" the counselor asked, leaning forward. Ethan nodded slowly. "Yes, I think I do." Caliph stood beside Ethan, silent but present, their energy still calm and focused. They did not need to speak. Their presence alone spoke volumes. "There are factions," the counselor continued, "ancient factions that will never accept this bond. They see your kind as a threat. You are unpredictable, uncontrollable, and if this bond becomes permanent—" The counselor trailed off, the meaning clear. If humanity's ability to bond was real, then it could reshape the galaxy. And that meant the established order, where control and fear ruled, could fall apart. "I'm not here to change everything," Ethan said quietly. "But I won't pretend I don't know what we've done. Caliph and I, this bond is different. It's not just about power, it's about survival." Caliph's voice joined in. "Survival through choice, not force." The counselors exchanged glances, their faces unreadable. Then the lead counselor nodded. "We will deliberate on this matter. We will consider the future. But know this, your bond will not go unnoticed. If the factions do not see your kind as a threat, they will at least see you as an opportunity." Ethan's stomach tightened. "An opportunity for what?" "To change the power balance of the galaxy," the counselor said simply. "And that is something we cannot ignore." The meeting ended with no clear answers, only a sense of impending uncertainty. The council was torn between fear and curiosity, hesitant to fully trust what Ethan and Caliph represented. As they left the chamber, Ethan looked at Caliph. "What do you think?" Caliph was quiet for a long time, their eyes lost in thought. "They will fear us," Caliph said softly, "but not because of what we are, because of what you showed them we could be." Ethan sighed. "I didn't mean for any of this." Caliph met his gaze, their expression calm, but there was a flicker of something deeper, understanding. "You did not mean to, but you chose to act when no one else would. That is what matters." As they walked back through the station's corridors, the reality of what was happening began to sink in. The galaxy, once familiar, was changing. Humankind, never truly understood, was now caught in a larger story, one that no one could predict. And in that moment, as they moved through the crowds of aliens who watched them with wary eyes, Ethan realized something else. It wasn't just Caliph who had changed. It was him too. The bond had connected them in a way neither could have anticipated. It was more than a promise of survival. It was a partnership that redefined everything Ethan thought he knew about the galaxy. Where once there had been a quiet observer, there was now a person who knew his place, who understood his role. They had become a symbol. A living reminder that sometimes, in a universe built on fear and control, the greatest strength lay in the ability to choose something better. Weeks passed, and the uneasy peace continued. But the galaxy was not still. The factions who had once sought to dominate, who had seen the bond between Caliph and Ethan as a fluke, were now gathering. The whispers of change were spreading, louder with every passing day. Ethan and Caliph knew the storm was coming. One evening, as they stood together watching the stars from the station's observation deck, Ethan asked, "Do you think it will be enough?" Caliph didn't answer right away. Instead, they simply looked out into the vast expanse of space, as if weighing the galaxies themselves. Finally, Caliph spoke, their voice steady. "I don't know," Caliph said, "but we are no longer alone. That is enough." Ethan turned to face them. "I'm not going anywhere." Caliph smiled faintly, and for the first time Ethan saw something he hadn't before, not just strength or power but trust. "That," Caliph said, "is all I needed to hear." As they stood there together, the stars outside glowing softly, Ethan felt the full weight of the bond between them. It wasn't just about survival. It wasn't about power. It was about choosing the right path. Together, the future was uncertain. The galaxy would never be the same. But for once, Ethan wasn't afraid of what came next. With Caliph by his side, he knew they could face whatever challenges the universe would throw at them. and the galaxy would soon learn what humans were truly capable of.